A few days ago, Manuel, the German TrueSDX guy, released his highly anticipated Android ARDOP app, finally giving us the ability to access the Winlink system over HF on the go, utilizing these tiny little computers that we all carry in our pockets. I've been using this app a lot, and I'm stoked to show you everything that I've learned. So let's dig into the equipment that we need, how to download the software, how to set everything up, and finally we'll send some Winlink emails with this exciting new app. We are right now connected to my favorite Winlink gateway on the planet Earth, and that is Brian's gateway in Yamhill, Oregon. His call sign's W7OWO. And that's about 500 kilometers away from here. But check this out. How many of you tried to get that data cable interface to work with your TrueSDX with other digital modes, and it just never really worked well? But with this app, it works seamlessly, it works flawlessly. And in fact, that's the only way you can connect to a transceiver. And it doesn't have to be the TrueSDX. That's what I had, and that's what made sense to me. But he has listed here, we can use an ICOM IC7300, IC705, a QMX, and he has a number of other untested transceivers here. Now, as you use this app, you're going to have to learn a little bit of German, but if you're watching this channel, I think you're an intelligent person and you have what it takes to figure this out along with me. And I'll show you a trick for rediscovering some of those words that we forgot after high school. Now, Manuel, in his video announcing this app, he talked about the importance of using an OTG adapter, and that's what I have here. I have an OTG adapter hooking into a micro USB cable that goes to the TrueSDX. But I found that to be optional and in some cases detrimental. My Google Pixel did not like the OTG adapter. And so on both of these phones, the Samsung Galaxy and my Pixel, I have tested just using this DigiRig brand USB-C to USB-C cable because it's got the nice ferrites on it. And on the end, I inserted this micro USB adapter for going into the TrueSDX. That works fine on both these phones. Additionally, on both phones, I've tested a USB-C hub with a micro USB cable plugged into it. Okay, that works. So if something doesn't work as you try this out, don't be discouraged. Keep trying other stuff. Okay, there's no possible way that a developer can write software for every single use case out there. So be flexible. Be persistent, keep going. You're going to get this. As long as your phone has a USB-C output, I'm certain that there is a solution. Now, looks like we're done here. I'm going to go ahead and disconnect, and we'll go over some of the settings on your TrueSDX that you need. Now, when you first boot up, he's going to have, like when you select here, let's see if I can kill it. No, it's not going to let me do that, but I'll tell you what you need. He's got it on his website too. So, in menu 1.1, there's a couple of different possibilities for what we can put here for volume. If you have your auto gain control off, Manuel recommends a volume setting of 7. If you have it on, he recommends a volume setting of 10. Now, he said to me, these are guidelines for starting. If you go into the log's very important, and I'll show you that here in a minute. If you go to log and it says that you're clipping, you will need to turn your volume down a little bit. Probably just one setting lower is going to be good enough. If you notice that you're not able to pick up those really fast 8 PSK, 2, 3, 4 carrier signals, maybe you need to turn your volume up a little bit. So it takes a little bit of experimentation. Start there. Now let's go to the auto gain control. It is menu 1.8. On or off depending on your conditions. Try both. Today, I was using AGC all day and it was just doing terrible. And so I turned it off and all of a sudden it got better. In prior days, AGC on was what worked the best. So I'm just kind of curious maybe if that needs to change depending on your antenna setup and just what the local conditions are. Continuing on, menu 2.4, semi-QSK. Got to tell you, I have no idea what that means, but Manuel says to turn it off and I'm more than happy to oblige. And up here to 3.3 TX drive. Manuel recommends starting with a TX drive of 4. He said that's a good standard setting, and it's working for me. Now, the only other thing to show you here is menu 9.7, your firmware version. Double check that. You're going to need firmware version 2.00X or greater. I don't think he has anything out quite yet, but he maybe dropped a little Easter egg hint in his last video. There, we may be seeing some updates to the firmware in the future, potentially. But you need at least that. I believe that is the beta version. But check his website. Make sure that you've got the most up-to-date firmware for that. As you go about downloading the software, there are a few quirks you need to be aware of because we're going about this by way of a little bit of a non-standard process. The first thing you need to know is that the whole thing runs through a Chromium-based web browser app. Now, that doesn't mean we need the internet in order to run it. We can download it for offline use. We just need the internet right now to download it, get that set up. So go to dl2man.de/ardop, and this whole page is a massive comprehensive FAQ. It's very likely that if you have questions, the answers are within this document. So take the time to read through it, and it'll make your life better. Additionally, we've got a donate button here, and I think when a developer goes to all that time and money to make our lives easier and they ask for some donations, I just think it's a really nice thing to pitch them a few bucks. But we're looking for this red open the client button here, and I'm going to click that. And I could just use this like this online, but that doesn't really make sense to me because if I have the internet, I'm just going to send a regular email and my life's going to be a whole lot less complicated than going through the Winlink system. But we're going to click the three-dot menu here. We're going to scroll down and look for a selection called Install and Create Shortcut. So if I click that, click Install, and then I'll click Add to add this widget to the home screen, and then that will be available for offline use. Unless I accidentally clear out my browsing data. And so I use Brave for all of my browsing. I don't know as if I necessarily trust that I'm not going to clear that out at some point. So I went ahead and found another browser. It's actually called Chromium Browser. I found it on the Play Store. Unfortunately, there was nothing available on F-Droid. But I figure I'm going to just maintain this browser for the use with the DL2MAN ARDOP app, and I'm not ever going to use it for browsing. And in that way, all of my browsing data will be maintained securely. And in fact, I clicked the I button here and I deselected this. I don't want it to have its permissions and its data removed. So go here, go to the same website, dl2man.de/ardop, open the client, and your menu is going to look a little bit different here. It's three-dot menu up at the top, and instead of install, it's called add to home screen. So we'll click that, and now that menu looks really familiar, doesn't it? Install, add to home screen. Now, I already did that. So I'm going to back out of this, and let's get into the software. Starting this application is as simple as clicking on the widget here, and that's going to pop us up into the Logs tab. Now, the Logs tab, it's right there. That's really important to watch because that's really our only indication as to the health of our connection and how things are doing. But to set up, we want to start with the settings screen here. We can enter our language, and I suppose most of it will be in English. SDFT demodulator, you really shouldn't need to mess with that because whatever is the most appropriate selection will be automatically populated by whatever transceiver you select in the radio tab there. And I've got the TrueSDX, and I'm going to click back over to settings. You can see he's got a description here saying the TrueSDX needs this checked, so probably shouldn't mess with that. Enter your Winlink credentials. Now, on most Winlink clients, you will be able to create an account through that, but in this case, this is such a bare bones, clean app, and that's not a bad thing. That's actually really good because I've never had this app crash on me, but we lose some functionality, so you won't be able to create an account through this client. So create an account somewhere else, come back to this client. Enter your Maidenhead grid square locator because that is going to then be used to populate this gateway and arrange it in a fashion that it shows the nearest gateways to your Maidenhead grid square that you entered in the settings tab. And so we can add different bands, we can subtract, we could delete all of them if we wanted. Remember, the TrueSDX comes with just the 80 through 20. So if you wanted to just look at what the TrueSDX is able to give you, do that. I'm going to delete everything except for 40 meter because that's what I'm tuned up for right now. And I don't want to transmit off of the 40 meter band. So when you decide which gateway you want, and you should, if you're using this app, you're probably a more advanced user. You should already know roughly what gateways work for you under most circumstances. You'll click Valen, which means to choose or to select, and pop over to the radio tab, and it automatically populates that here in the bandwidth and target gateway. You shouldn't really need to mess with those settings. You can select something different here, if you needed to, but I'll show you Brian's. That's a 500 hertz gateway. There it is, automatically populated up there. Now to compose an email, self-explanatory. You just click compose, enter the email address or the call sign if the recipient is already within the Winlink system. Subject, body, and we can insert our GPS position. We can add an attachment. Haven't played around with that much yet. I'm really curious to see more about how that works. And then when you're ready, click Add to Outbox. So I've already added one to Outbox. Now, you should know, I can click this and expand it and look at it, but I can't edit it. And again, this is just a very, very clean, bare bones app, and that is not necessarily a bad thing, but we do lose some of that functionality. So make sure whatever you post to that outbox is exactly how you want to send it. If you want to clear this outbox, the only way to do that is to clear your browsing data through your browser. But then in order to use this again as an offline app, you'll need that internet connection. And so there again, just be real careful when you use that. And Manuel, if you're watching this, it might be actually really nice if we could have the ability to edit or delete these in the future if you do some updates on this. Inbox emails, real simple. Click inbox, and that's where your incoming messages will be displayed. And that's really all there is to setup. We are now ready to send some Winlink emails. Okay, we're ready to connect to the transceiver here. So after plugging in, the first thing it's going to ask us is which app we want to use with this USB device. The ARDOP app is not in this list, so I'll select out of that, and I just want to connect to the transceiver. It's going to ask for permission, and there we go. And if everything goes well, we should see this waterfall. There it is. And I believe I've already got my sound settings dialed in. And let's check on the radio tab. Yeah, that looks okay. So let's start hunting around for a gateway. Unfortunately, there is a ton of activity on the bands this evening, so this may be just the worst day of the year to try this. So we're looking right in the middle of that waterfall, and there's enough activity surrounding that. Let's try a different one first and see if we can find another one that works better before. Well, somebody's getting ARDOP to work, but it ain't me here yet. Let's see. K6 SDR, that one usually works pretty well. Nope, we've got activity there too. So yeah, so we're just going to continue this hunting around to try to find some open area of the band that we can use. VA7DEP, I've had that one work before. Let's go ahead and connect to the gateway. So it's saying that the channel's busy. However, I don't see any organized activity there. I think we're just seeing splatter from other signals. So I feel comfortable clicking the override busy lock, and we'll give it another shot. I don't think we're going to be interfering with anyone else here. So it's going to try 5 times to connect. And sometimes these gateways are scanning like a dozen different frequencies. Oh, there we go. Hey, that's nice. That looks promising. All right, looks like we're getting a good connection here. So once we start getting a good signal, let's go over here to the log and we'll scroll all the way to the bottom. And we're looking for, first of all, where it says clips here, should say 0 next to it. If we have a number there, then it means we need to turn the volume down. But yeah, look at this. Okay, so as you've noticed, a lot of this is in German, and that's fine. While you're practicing around with this app, while you're in a place with an internet connection, download the DeepL Translation App, because here's what you can do. You can highlight words. There we go. And then go to the 3-dot menu and click Translate. And you don't have to leave the app, and it'll tell you what this means. So you're going to get used to these. Like empfangen, I know that means receive. We can, just as we watch this, look around. All right, so bestätigt, that means confirmed. So our preamble has been all the way confirmed there. And it should go on to, nope, decode failure, decode error, I believe. It's still working on it. It's still working on it. I've got that email queued up in the outbox. And so I find myself, as I use this, I just continue scrolling through. All right, it's clearly sending the email now, 64 out of 228 bytes, bestätigt, confirmed. Got a little bit of a hiccup here. It's continuing to work. It's continuing to work. It's trying. I think this will be successful. So, almost halfway. Here we go. What I've found so far is that I have a lot better success in the evening and at night than I do during the day with ARDOP. And it's just not as robust as Vara. I've become very spoiled using Vara, but you know, there's no Vara for Android. So I think this is just the very best tool that we have for mobile use to access the Winlink system over HF at this point. So I think I see somebody stomping over my transmission. So this might take a little longer than I prefer, but still no clips. I'm not seeing any indication of clipping. It's just asking us to repeat a lot. It's okay, I got time. I am curious what decision-making process you went through to decide what should be English and what should be Wiederholung. All right, keep going, you got this. At some point it's going to time us out, and I'm just really hoping it keeps going because we're almost done with sending this email. My suspicion is that short messages, short pithy messages, is the key to success with this mode. Keep going, little guy, you got this. So where is that gateway? What do we get? VA7DEP Delta BC. I have never been to British Columbia, even though we live super close to it. Everybody tells me it's beautiful up there. All right, back to the log. And every time I click over to the log, I'm going to have to scroll all the way to the bottom. Still trying to retransmit. At 2:24, that's almost the whole email. 2:24 out of 2:28, come on, you can't quit there. Like one more good frame and we'll have it. There it is. I believe we have to go through a confirmation process now. There it is. And we're done. QRP is hard. ARDOP is hard. ARDOP over QRP is
double secret probation.
Hard. And so you all saw me send an email successfully there, but what you didn't see was me struggling for hours today through terrible conditions, through other amateur radio users who were entirely inconsiderate. And the second I would get a successful connection, they'd stomp all over me. I think there was some sort of MFSK game or contest or something going on, because it was complete saturation carpet bombing of the bands with this crap. And so, yes, this takes not only a learning curve, but it's just hard to use. That is not the fault of this app. This app is great. It's just the simple matter of ARDOP is not as robust as Vara. We don't have nearly the selection of gateways to choose from with ARDOP compared to Vara. And so it takes practice. I know that I'm going to continue to have to practice using this app and using ARDOP for a long time. And I know that I've already gotten better at using it. I expect to continue to get better using it the more I practice. And so if you're frustrated with this, I just hope you don't give up, because it's a really good app and it's the best thing we have for accessing the HF Winlink system with an Android phone at this point. And so as I've used this app now for a few days, I have a couple pieces of feedback for the developer as to how I think the workflow while using this app might be improved. So first of all, the ability to edit an Outbox email or even delete one and start over would be really helpful, because there are often times where I will post something to the Outbox and I'll see a huge embarrassing typo and I want to fix that before sending it out. Or I find out conditions are just not supportive of a very long email, and I need to re-edit it to narrow things down and abbreviate things and make it much pithier so that I can actually get that message out, because as you guys just saw there, it really even struggled to get out just a 228 byte email. The other piece of feedback I have is that log. That log is critical. It's really, really helpful to know what's going on and have that indication of the health of our connection, but it populates top down, and every time I click into the log, I have to scroll all the way to the bottom of the log to see the newest information that comes across that log. So if it were that I could reorder the log, or if new information came in on the top of the log, or maybe it just continued to bounce you down every time that it updated, that might be really, really helpful to the user so that they can troubleshoot things. They can see if they're clipping and turn down their volume after they disconnect and readjust settings and reconnect. I do think that would help the user do their job a little bit better. But overall, I am extremely satisfied with this app, and I am very, very grateful to be able to use it.